Hi guys, it's time to grab your personal terminal, put on your stereoscopic shades, retrieve your cigarettes from your mutant cat that's just stolen them, grab your personal bowel disruptor set to prolapse, and hit the streets of the dystopic future known only as the city. I am the Deconstructive DM. Welcome to all you transhumanists as we dive into the world of Transmetropolitan. And we deconstruct back on the streets and up on the roof. So, Transmetropolitan is a cyberpunk transhumanist comic book series written by Warren Ellis, who some of you may recognise from the most recent Castlevania series. Co-created and designed by Derek Robertson. Published by DC Comics from 1997 to 2002. Transmetropolitan chronicles the battles of Spider Jerusalem, infamous renegade gonzo journalist of the future, who dedicates himself to fighting the corruption and abuse of power of two successive United States presidents. Spider and his filthy assistants strive to keep their world from turning more dystopian than it already is, while dealing with the struggles of fame, celebrity, and the popularity of Spider's articles. Something Spider regularly digs at in his column with headlines such as, "If you loved me, you'd all kill yourselves today." The world of Transmetropolitan. So sometime in the future, how long precisely is never specified, but it's said to be in the 23rd century, we explore the city. A fictional megacity which forms the main setting located somewhere in the United States. The city is the largest metropolitan area in the futuristic world of the series, and the centre of political and social culture. Rife with filth and decadence, the city shows the spectrum of the human experience, from down-and-out slums to the gleaming state building of Arcaden Hall. As far as the comics go, I've never come across another with so much vibrance and making a city feel real. Nothing's off limits as we see things like Ebola Cola, to Air Jesus sports shoes, exotic dishes from makers, Spider munches a bucket of caribou eyes while watching TV, to conventions with brand new religions and reservations where you can give up modern life entirely to live in a simulation of another time. So let's dive into our construction as we get back on the streets and up on the roof. Generalization. We'll be covering the events of the riot, as all other events are backstory for Spider himself, which will not apply to our players. We'll include NPCs who motivate Spider, but will adapt them as direct motivators, i.e. quest givers. The core example of this is Royce, who indirectly gives Spider the generic quest, write a column, which for us directly becomes investigate this incident. Key events of Up on the Roof. Spider is motivated by the need to write his column for Royce. He sees Fred Christ on TV and his cause on the news feed and decides to investigate. Spider travels to see Fred. On the way, he sees the conditions of the people Fred is ruling over, living in abject poverty, one of whom is living in a doorway, clutching a baby she claims to belong to Fred. Blockades bar the way, people huddle around brazier fires, and squalor and filth abound. Spider incapacitates Fred's guards and interviews him. Spider finds out Fred's motives are that of a messiah or conqueror, and Fred justifies anything he wants with righteous fervour, blaming the authorities that be for all the issues Spider has just seen. Leaving, Spider spots businessmen, likely lawyers, bribing a transient for an unknown reason that Spider infers to likely be inciting the police. Spider returns home, contemplating the incident and talking to Royce, who scolds him for doing what all the other journalists are doing, which is interviewing Fred. Once Spider reaches his home, the flashpoint occurs. A transient firebombs a patrol car, starting the riot, which Spider catches on the news. Spider rushes back to Angel's 8 and scours for a high ground position. He makes his report that he sends to Royce, who broadcasts it live, showing the police brutality. The police then pull out, ending the conflict. As Spider leaves for home, police brutally beat him, threatening him if he ever confronts them again. Spider's rebuttal is, "Shoot me and I'll spit your bullets back in your face." The module. This module does not cover either character dialogue, detailed descriptions, stat blocks, or balancing for party size, assuming you will pen or improv these to suit your campaign needs. All items in the module have been generalized to allow adaptation to any tabletop RPG system, and as usual, please feel free to make a copy of the module to edit for your own purposes. Standard Deconstructive DM annotations. F for faction, P for person, L for location, I for item. These are used throughout the module, making it possible to use find and replace on the document, so that one or more can be customized to your campaign with ease. Prerequisites. To incorporate this module into your game immediately, you will need to have a city with districts or blocks, an operating government. This is optional as they're an indirect presence and can be replaced. A resident police force, a media presence, a newspaper or magazine. Again, this is optional and can optionally be reskinned as a different faction. Premise. Adventurers are quested with investigating a potential riot, learning of an impending crackdown on a street gang of transients by the corrupt section of the police, from the head of the word, Royce. The street gang have decided to take over the district of Angels 8 and blockade several streets, claiming the territory as their own and declaring themselves an independent territory. Players must find a way into Angels 8, discover the motives of the transients and prevent the riot. Key events. The event structure that unfolds as the scenario plays out. Royce gives the adventurers the quest to go and investigate rumours of the barricade in Angels 8 and find out what the transients are doing. Their leader's name is Fred. The adventurers travel to see Fred after making it to the barricade. They must make it past one or two transient guards. After finding their way in, they see the conditions of the people Fred is ruling over and promising a better life to. They're living in abject poverty, one of whom is living in a doorway clutching a baby that she claims belongs to Fred. Blockades bar the main streets, people huddle around brazier fires, and squalor and filth are abound. Once the adventurers learn of Fred's location, they must pass or incapacitate more transient guards and interview him. The interviewers find out Fred's motives are that of a messiah or conqueror, and Fred justifies anything he wants with righteous fervour, blaming the authorities that be for all the issues the adventurers have just seen. Leaving, the adventurers spot businessmen, likely lawyers, bribing transient guards for an unknown reason that the adventurers infer to likely be inciting the police. The adventurers return home contemplating the incident and talking to Royce, who scolds them for doing what everyone is doing, which is interviewing Fred. Once the adventurers reach their home, the flashpoint occurs. A transient guard firebombs a patrol car, starting the riot with the police, which adventurers overhear from the public. The adventurers rush back to Angels 8 and try and stop the riot. At this point, there are many possible divergences with the plot, and it's up to the adventurers to try and solve the problem of the riot. Adventurers could side with the transients, could side with the police, could take on both, or just try and wait it out while rescuing people, or any number of things. Eventually, the police pull out, ending the conflict. Fred is found half-naked, huddling with an underage girl, and hauled away by the police. As the adventurers leave for home, the faction they didn't side with ambush and attack them, swearing vengeance. NPCs and factions. Characters essential to the storyline. Royce, who's located in the office of the Word, is an initial quest giver. He's surly, an anti-establishment type, greedy and business-focused. The Word. Headquarters of the newspaper with the same name, a paper with a reputation for anti-establishment columns and journalism. Fred, located in his office at Angels 8, he's the instigator of the current situation, initially welcoming if sympathetic to his cause, abuses his power as leader to get whatever he wants, which mainly includes women. Half the kids in the area are reported to be his. He turns brash and violent at any criticism of his cause or himself, has an all or nothing mentality. Transient guards. Standard bodyguard types who obstruct the way and don't listen to reasoning. They may attack if provoked. The police. Generic guards who obstruct and attack if provoked. Lawyers. Indirect antagonists. They can be spied talking to transients at the barricades. Locations. Places that are essential to the storyline. Royce's office is located in the print district of the Word building, a smoke-filled, noisy press office brimming with staff writers, journalists and assorted complainants. Royce is in his office at the rear. The route to Angels 8, either from the office or from the player's safe house, is mainly used for city flavour and random encounters. Barricade, the first obstacle on the journey to Angels 8. There are one or two transients on guard here. The regular citizens haven't been ousted yet, so they're brash and pushy but will keel over or flee at the first sign of a fight. Angels 8 Centre. Exploration area for locating Fred. There are several derelict buildings, plus any business that can prosper during times like these, such as weapon shops, brothels, etc., but very little supplies. Fred's office. Located in a bar within the Angel's 8, is a place to interview and interrogate Fred. Brothel. A safe house in Angel's 8. The bouncer is guarding the door, but with reasonable persuasion will let you in. Power dynamics. The motivations of each faction NPC to aid you in characterizing how they play. The Transients are a gang who operate in Angel's 8, the roughest part of the city. Their new leader Fred is a power-mad despot with a messiah complex who's convinced he can force the government to grant him Angel's 8 as a territory in the city by threat of a violent revolution. He now wants to make his presence known and has barricaded the roads, declaring Angel's 8 an independent territory with himself as the ruler. The Transients themselves are rabble who are either fanatical about their cause or poverty-stricken pawns in this game of cat and mouse. The police are a corrupt elite unit looking for an excuse to come down hard on the Transients. They carry out the orders of the government, and it's currently re-election time for a law and order regime. They don't attack directly unless ordered, but will look for any excuse to use violence. Royce is the owner of a newspaper called The Word and has heard rumours of the expansive power and watched the rise of the street gang of Transients with curiosity. He's also committed to freedom of the press, which is likely to be threatened by the government. He tipped off the adventurers in regard to the possible incident and interference, asking for information to be gathered as covertly as possible. He's sending adventurers in as it's become too dangerous to send a journalist. Follow-up, rewards, and additions. These events potentially add an enemy faction, an ally faction, and some moral ambivalence to your campaign, as well as payment from Royce. In the comic, Fred manipulates the desperate Transients for his own gains, but vastly underestimates the powers that be in the police. The result is innocents caught between two tyrannical regimes for the players to resolve. Do they side with Fred despite his horrors, or do they crack down on the dissidents flaunting the law despite the brutality of the police against innocent people? Do they do both? Do they do neither? Do they find some other way to halt the proceedings and save the innocent people of Angel's 8? I hope you enjoyed this module and that your playthrough was character building, intense and memorable. That's everything for now, guys. I hope you liked the show. As usual, please like and subscribe and share this content if you find it useful. And let me know what you thought in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future shows, anything else you want to see, just let me know. And in the meantime,